would always choose the familiar hell over the unfamiliar heaven, which is so true because you're feeling comfortable, right? Like your
Yeah.
little ego is like, oh my God, yes, like life's a bit shit, but at least I'm not scared.
Hello, beautiful people, and welcome to the very first episode of Beyond Boundaries podcast. Our first guest is Yannik Weber. He is an engineer turned entrepreneur, a Tai Chi instructor, and the host of the Human Experience podcast. This episode is very special for both of us because this was the first episode we both ever recorded. In this episode, we talk about my life's journey so far, fear, God, limiting beliefs, Yannik breaking free of the boundaries he didn't know he had set for himself, and many, many more interesting topics. If you like this episode, do leave us a review. But for now, be ready to spread your wings and go beyond boundaries with us.
Hello,
Hi,
what's your name?
Richa.
Amazing, Yannick.
Ah,
Hello.
Yannik. Is it a German name?
It is a French name, actually.
Ah,
Yes, because we grew up close to the French border, and my mom thought it was a fancy thing to
uh-huh.
put a Y in front of my name, which actually makes it French now.
Ah,
Apparently, that tiny little twist is already
instead of a J,
enough
you
to
put
do. Yes.
that's interesting.
So, Richard, what do you do?
In
How do you
life,
spend your time?
how do I make money?
How'd you make money? How'd you make the bucks?
Well, I'm a computational linguist. I teach machines how to understand human language, how to process human language, and make human lives easier.
Okay,
Yeah,
interesting. So that means before you teach machines how
yeah,
human language is working, I guess you have to understand human language before.
yes. Or the mechanics of human language.
Okay.
Yeah, how humans understand how the brain works, comprehends language. So, yeah, a bit of that. You don't have to know everything, but you just have to capture the gist of it, understand the concepts. And it's pretty similar to how you teach a child a language, the basics of a language, from grammar to sentence formation, by giving them examples. Similarly, you teach a machine the inner workings of a language by giving it examples in the form of more and more data. Yeah.
Okay. That sounds very interesting.
Yeah.
So before I'm asking you where you're going with that, I'm gonna go the opposite direction.
Yeah.
Why did you start with that?
I started with that. Actually, it's pretty funny. I wanted to do some computer vision, do something with the images and videos, also maybe like real time translation, subtitling for the videos. And at the time when I was just starting out, I didn't have enough computing power in my laptop. Then I thought, what can I do? I don't have like 512 gigs just to download the data for the data storage. And then on top of that, I need to be able to process the data and make something out of it which is meaningful. Then I thought, okay, where should I look next? Text. And the text files are like 12 megabytes large, and that's good enough to get started. And I started with a pretty basic setup, and then as I learned more about it, I got more interesting. And then I did my first job in this field of natural language processing, which means to teach machines how to process language. And then it just got more interesting from there. So, yeah, I in general enjoy researching, studying, learning. And yeah, this path seemed like it was meant for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this last part that it was meant for you is a very interesting topic that I think we're going to be diving into a little bit deeper during this
Yeah.
conversation as well.
I can't wait.
Yes, it sounds like a very pragmatic approach to how you were going about the discovery of what you're actually doing at the moment.
Yeah, yeah. It wasn't a coincidence, I would say, because now I feel like it was meant for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
When you say it was meant for you, why do you say that?
I think the overall journey, that just that decision of me switching to finding something like text documents which are easy for my machine to process, just that decision changed my whole life. I applied for an internship, came to Germany for my first job, through that internship, which was also based on like a chatbot, which works on textual data. And once I got into the job, I realized, okay, I'm really passionate about this field, so I want to study further. That's how I came to the University of Saarland to study more about it. And now I work for it. So 6 years ago, actually, it was my dream to work in research. I didn't know what I want to research about, um, but I did know that I want to be a researcher. And yeah, and then somehow things happened. I came into research and I enjoy every bit of it, I would say. So that's why I think this is meant for me. Yeah.
Amazing,
Yeah.
amazing. Sounds like you're going with the flow of life a lot over there.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
The thing is generally very, very interesting because I think there are these like two, if you can say there are two different streams of like how you can go about your life
Yeah.
in general. One being like, okay, I know I got a passion. I'm not really sure where to go with it,
Yeah.
or I'm just trying to find a good solution to a problem which I
Yeah.
have at hand right now, and then I'm kind
Yeah.
of just letting myself take
Yeah.
in a certain direction. Or you're really like, oh my God, my aim is to become the CEO of like, I don't know, in a software development
Yeah.
company, and then I'm gonna do everything that I have in order to get there.
Yeah.
It sounds like you're more in camp one than camp two, being like, okay, I enjoy doing this. I want to solve
Yeah.
those problems. And I want to continue like that.
Yeah. It's more of a spontaneous decision. I think, yeah, I take a lot of decisions spontaneously. Although there's a lot of thought behind it. It's building up, but in general, I know that there's a big vision. It's not materialistic. It's just the way I see myself, the larger vision that I have in me, and yeah, I think to some extent, I always know where I want to go. It's not that I want to become a CEO or I want to lead a team, become a project manager. It's never like that. I want to grow myself. I want to know myself through the process, and I want to be in touch with myself along the way. So I think this has been in my conscience for a very long time somehow. And yeah, I try to follow the path which I think would um, which is in harmony to the vision I see for myself, like the big vision in the big future, which I don't know when is that big future. Maybe it's now, but
Maybe
yeah,
that's a fantastic name for a podcast as well. It's like,
yeah,
maybe it is.
yes, it is.
Maybe.
Maybe.
Another coincidence, right?
Yes, yes.
So how would you describe that vision that you started to touch now? Like what is that big vision which is either happening right now or in the future
hmm
or whenever?
I think, yeah, that's a good question.
Thank you. You were
So,
preparing it right in front of me, so I thought
yeah.
like I'm going to use that opportunity right now.
Ah, good. Well, when I was a little girl, I heard a Bollywood actor speaking in an interview that little girls are normally, or at least in India, they are normally taught to follow the lead. But her parents taught her to go above and beyond her means, her thinking capabilities, to do whatever she wants to do or do whatever she can dream of in her life. And that made her first a model, then an actress, then a singer, then a Hollywood actress, an author. She is Priyanka Chopra, by the way. And I was really inspired by that. And she said that at every level, when you break a glass ceiling, there's another one waiting for you. And never stop doing that because you have to reach the sky. And when you reach the sky, you can even break that and go even beyond that. So I think that stayed with me. And I think my vision about myself is also to break one glass ceiling after another. And I think glass ceiling is just a fancy word for the limiting beliefs we have for ourselves. And when we break them, the opportunities are boundless
Mm-hmm.
and it empowers you. You necessarily don't have to know everything beforehand, but as you proceed in your life with the experiences, you start feeling, okay, these beliefs that I thought were beyond my comprehension or beyond reach, I think I was living in a false reality, and
Mm-hmm.
it's time to shatter them and move beyond. Why can't I do this? I can. And yeah, so when I say I have a bigger vision of myself, I don't want to again put myself in a box and say that I want to be a singer, a guitarist, I want to be someone. No, I know I want to be bigger and better than what I'm now, but I don't want to label myself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't want to label myself as just a researcher or a computational linguist. That's what I do for profession. But for my profession at the moment, but I don't know what I'll be doing 6 months from now, a year from now.
Yeah.
So, and I also think that doesn't define me. Yeah. So I find it pretty shallow to just define oneself as what they are doing professionally, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Because a person is more than that.
That's very, very powerful. And I think
Yeah.
that's one of the most common traps that on your whole journey you first have to actually identify as a trap or
Yeah.
as a limiting belief or
Yeah.
as a glass ceiling, as you say. Because if
Yeah.
you're like, I was walking around a lot of my life not even knowing that I have been
Yeah.
creating these ceilings or these beliefs for
Uh-huh.
myself. And then suddenly when you start to ask yourself the question, why can't
Mm-hmm.
I, which you were asking before that, you first of all come up with all the reasons why you can't, which are external to yourself.
Yeah.
You're like, because of, I don't know, my origin, my heritage, because I don't have money, because I don't have the education, because I'm not
Yeah.
from that family, because
Mm-hmm.
I don't know anyone in, I don't know, the upper levels of the company or whatever, like
Yeah.
why I can't reach it. But then when you go deeper and you start to remove those layers, you
Yeah.
start to see more and more that it's actually maybe it's just you. Maybe you're just reaching for the wrong things. Maybe instead of reaching for the next paycheck or pay rise,
Mm-hmm.
maybe you can also say, maybe this whole company structure that I'm
Yeah.
setting myself up in is actually another limitation. I can break out of that.
Mm-hmm.
So how did you find your first limiting beliefs? And like and what were they? Like if I don't know, if anyone's asking what's the limiting belief?
Yeah.
Like how did you find yours and what was one of the ones that you were like, "Oh shit, this is actually how I'm holding myself back right now and not anyone else by doing something."
Yeah. I think the first one that I figured out pretty early was when I went into college, when I started my bachelor's. I was always interested in dramatics, and yeah, I was in school a very disciplined, studious girl, always eager to learn, study, also pretty active in sports. But I knew that I have very limited time and I should make the most out of it by preparing for exams. And yeah, there's a lot of burden that the school puts on you
Mm.
as in high school, especially. And then when I came into the university, I knew that I want to join the dramatic society, but there was this thing, can I do this? Like, my body language was very stiff. And I remember my seniors at the time telling me that you have to loosen up. You have to think of the camera as your friend, think of
Mm.
us as your friends. We are not judging you. You have to come out of your head. And I think that's one thing that I figured out. Okay, what I think of myself in my head, that I can do this, I want to do this, rather than just wanting to do this, I need to think of it as I meant to do this.
Mm-hmm.
And then once I made that switch in my mind, it was easier to learn the dialogues, learn the script, perform. And then I didn't care if I'm performing in front of 5 seniors, 50 colleagues of mine in the dramatic society, or 500 people on a random street. I didn't care. And I think when I was able to do that, or even dance in the middle of a street, so I was in a street theater society, that was very liberating. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
actively breaking through that ceiling
Yes.
by putting
Yes.
yourself deliberately into a situation where probably most of the people would
Yeah.
just fucking shit themselves. Like I know I know I was just feeling it with like the identity shift that you're mentioning is very, very interesting because I
Yeah.
only got to it very late. Like in the beginning I used to suck at presentations.
Uh
Like I
huh.
was literally just walking in front of class and I was only
Yeah.
like stuttering a few words and I
Yeah.
was like ashamed just putting everything aside and then
Yeah.
getting to the point where
Yeah.
actually giving presentations in front of like whole panels of like
Mhm.
international people and you as you say you just stop caring.
Yeah.
But like if you had to put it down into like I don't know a few steps that you can actively take, how did you create that identity that actually made you just not give a shit about it anymore? Because that's a really, really
Mhm.
big one, right?
Yeah, I think it depends on your why, you know? After a point, for me, I just get flustered, also annoyed at myself. Like, this is something that I have been dreaming of since my childhood. I want to be an actor. I want to be able to act. I I do that with my friends, with my family, with my cousins. But why am I not able to do that in front of strangers? How? Yeah, so I think it's a lot of internal dialogue. You have to fight with yourself. At least in my case, the way I come out of a certain situation is by having this internal fight in my mind that it's a full on dialogue
Mm-hmm.
with the two sides of me.
Mm-hmm.
And
Lucky
I
that you only have two of them.
sometimes there are more, but I think uh, one of the sides which always makes one take a step back or more than one steps back is fear.
Hmm.
And once you realize that I don't want to be limited or I don't want to limit my experience by the fear of showing up and doing what I really want to, but I can't because I'm so scared. And
Hmm.
then I don't like feeling weak. No one likes feeling weak. And once you are able to understand that what's hindering you actually is the fear of letting yourself down in some way, not being perfect, then I think you also realize that if you don't start, you won't be a perfect
Hmm.
at that thing anyway. So you
Yeah.
have to start, you have to make mistakes. It's the entire process of doing something,
It's so
you
true.
know?
And
Yeah.
I was making it a game from time to time to actually
Mm,
go to some, I don't know, big creators on YouTube or
yeah.
even look at people who we consider our idols because they have invented something fucking fantastic.
Yeah.
And I went back to their beginning. It's like if you're lucky and you're catching someone, let's just say like let's just take the simple example of someone's big on Instagram and they can talk so well and
Mm,
like present themselves in a way where you're like, oh my God, I wish I could be that confident, like in front of a camera, in front of people. If you see that they have like 1,000 posts or so up on
yeah.
Instagram, scroll back to their very beginning and look at
Yeah.
how they sucked. And then you start to understand that
Yeah.
it's not something that you're born with, right? It's like it's not
Yeah.
something that you're natural about. It's just they were just doing it, right? They were
Yeah.
showing up when other people were like, "Oh, I'm so scared."
Yeah.
And we all know that fear. But then also when you start to ask yourself the question, what exactly is that fear? It's extremely difficult to really put your finger on what it
Yeah.
is because it kind of is the fear of like, I'm gonna die or
Yeah.
I'm gonna be abandoned by my tribe and
Yeah.
by my people or whatever it is. And then once you get to that
Mm,
fundamental level, you're like, I'm controlled by something
mm,
where I don't even know how the situation
yeah.
could be turning up, right? Like
Yeah.
maybe it's the best thing. I think there was this famous saying, it's like for the unfamiliar heaven,
Mm,
which is so true because you're feeling comfortable, right? Like your
yeah.
little ego is like, oh my God, yes, like life's a bit shit, but at least I'm not scared. But
Mm-hmm.
then when you can do that and you're just breaking through it so many times, you're like, oh my God, I'm actually so free. Like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
wild.
I think just to be able to learn to breaking through your fears is also a skill.
Mm,
Yeah, you have to do it again and again. You can't just stop by doing it once and feel like, oh, I break through it. Well, it's a win for sure, but the
Yes.
next time it comes around, you are again gonna feel scared, and you have to again find the courage to do it. So instead of finding motivation, I think it's better to put oneself in a situation where they have to break through again and again and again, and
It's a muscle that you're
it's a
building.
muscle. Yeah.
Yeah. What are you telling yourself when fearful Richa is showing up and it's like, oh my God, I can't do
Yeah.
that. Like this is too much now. Like now I'm hitting the limit. Now I'm
Yeah.
approaching the line that I'm never supposed to cross. Like what are you telling yourself to
Yeah.
almost convince yourself to do it anyways?
Well, I never tell myself that I'm not supposed to cross this line. That
Mm,
never comes. What always comes is that I can do this. Yeah, and I say that pretty much 15,000 times a day.
yeah.
I can do this.
Religiously.
Yeah.
That's good.
Or I also make the people around me say this to me,
Uh-huh.
that I can do this. Do you think I can do this? Yes, I can do this. So this is not for them, it's for me. I want to hear this. I can do this. And sometimes I also just write it. I put little post-its, and yeah. And I also, yeah, just like journaling in general. And once I write it down, once I write why am I feeling so anxious, why am I making this a huge thing in my head, why is it making me uneasy, what are the actual thoughts behind it, what is the actual feeling, and yeah, then it's easier to come out of it, and to make me actually believe that yes, I can do this. It's not such a big thing. And actually, very recently, I was talking to my cousin, and she told me that something is only as important as the meaning you attach to it, you know? And once you start seeing something from a broader perspective, then something that's causing you anxiety, it reduces to a needle, and you just need to know how to attach meaning to things, and then it becomes a lot easier. And if I think that the presentation tomorrow is so big the entire world is going to watch it, I'm not going to be able to do it.
Exactly.
But if I see it's something, oh, the entire world is going to watch it, it's fine, I just have to be at my best, and okay, I don't even care, yeah, then perhaps it'll be like how I want it to be.
Just
Perfect.
balancing
Yeah.
it out, coming back to reality.
Yeah.
It's so true. It's like
Yeah.
especially the our mind is an expert at giving so much attention
Yeah.
value to the thoughts that we're having
Yeah.
where we don't even know where the thoughts are coming from, right?
Yeah.
It's like I think we take our thoughts for granted so
Mm.
much and we assume so much that our thoughts are us that we identify with those thoughts, where it's also a choice to completely detach from it, right? Like we can
Yeah.
think it's like, oh my God, I'm an engineer, I'm not supposed to do that. If I would only leave that thought behind, would not look at it, maybe I would be able to do things. Or maybe I can start to act differently in the conversation, right? If like, I don't know, if your relatives, especially now we're approaching Christmas, we're reaching a very critical point in some families. And when, I don't know, grandma's giving you a rant or like the things where you know, oh my God, this is gonna happen anyways, and you just decide to react differently, you can see how your entire view of the situation is changing. It's
Yeah.
like just playing that mental game a little bit can
Yeah,
can
but
make
I
so
think
much.
it's difficult to do that with people who are close to you, no? How do you do that?
That's the main
Yeah.
challenge. This
Yeah.
is like I think the people who are close to you know you so well
Yeah.
that they also know all the triggers and buttons and switches that they
Yes.
can press and like turn and
Yeah.
everything.
But here, I mean the people who are close to you, but not so close to you. You know, like your aunts, your relatives. Yeah, they might say some things, but it's not like they are your best friends, you know? Your best friends are probably your parents, your siblings, but there's another level in the circle. They are also close to you, but perhaps they have some other expectations out of you, and if you don't meet them, They would say something. Probably they would think that they are saying it for your own, to encourage you, you
Mm.
know. But I think sometimes you are just not in the zone. You are doing your own thing, and they don't understand it. Then how do you balance it out? How do
Why do they
you?
have to understand it?
They don't.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like I think the whole point
Yeah.
about expectation is really, really
Yeah.
interesting because especially with like people close to you or not as close to you but
Yeah.
still around every single
Yeah.
time, they sometimes have the audacity to have expectations. And
Hmm.
everyone can have their expectations,
Yeah.
but it's your choice if you accept those
Mhm.
expectations, right? It's the same thing if you would start to shout at me and if you would start to call me names and
Hmm.
it's like, put your fucking dishes away, whatever it is.
Yeah.
I can also let you go home with
Mhm.
that anger without taking it onto me. I can be like, "Oh, what the fuck? You're just a bit like, it's like,
Mhm.
that's a bit,
Crazy.
that's a bit wild right now. I
Yeah.
don't have to say, I don't have to react, right?
Mhm.
And this is like, that's the great choice that we all
Yeah.
have. Like, we can, if you only pause a little bit, if you see the trigger coming,
Mhm.
where you know exactly, oh my God, if Auntie is saying that now, I'm going to blow up. If you rewrite that and you're like, no matter what she's saying, I'm going to take a deep breath in and I'm going to
Mhm.
decide if I even want to react.
Mhm.
Or if I'm just flipping it all around and maybe I'm just going to ask her a question back. Or
Mhm.
maybe I'm just going to switch topic. Or maybe I'm
Mhm.
just not going to react to that at all. It's
Mhm.
like if you make that a conscious decision, you can very, very quickly just like take all the ammunition from her, right? It's
Yeah.
like, because she can be like, oh my God, but you should do that. It's like, is that making you money? And you feel like, okay, normally I'm like, why the fuck do you always want to be involved in my life, right? It's like, what should I do? But
Yeah.
if instead you just say, no, and that's okay.
Hmm.
Or like, yes, it is. Like, what if it's not?
Hmm.
Or you just don't say anything or say, I really like your necklace. It's like just watch their face then.
Hmm.
It's absolutely it's magical because it's interrupting the pattern so
Hmm.
much because
Hmm.
she's also expecting you to react. So you kind of on a mental level you already had the whole conversation
Yeah.
and it already exploded and you're kind of just waiting for reality to catch up.
Yeah.
But if you interrupt the pattern, then for her there is nothing else to respond anymore. So she has to go back to yeah, okay. Okay, maybe
Thank
that's your
you.
thing. Yeah, okay. Yeah, it's new,
Yeah.
right? So it's really good. And
That's a good
that
trick. Huh.
little second is deciding so much. I think this is also why I got into meditation initially.
Hmm.
Like, it was not why I got into meditation initially. That's wrong. It's why I really started to appreciate meditation
Hmm.
because I've always seen meditation as increasing the gap between an input coming to you
Hmm.
and you reacting to it.
Hmm.
So before that, before actually understanding that, like, okay, I can also just sit down and I'm like, I'm just not going to think and I'm still alive, I'm not thinking, which was a perfect first realization. It's like, oh my God, there's actually a space where that little voice is not talking.
Hmm.
Meditation also gave me the option to react to my own thoughts, but also to input coming from other people.
Hmm.
And the more I'm kind of enjoying that silence, the more I can also extend that gap. So there can be an
Hmm.
input and I can think about it. I'm like, do I like that or not? Maybe it doesn't matter. Do I
Hmm.
want to react to that? Yeah, I do. But maybe not the same way as before.
Yeah.
And then you also start to reprogram yourself on a very, very deep level
Yeah.
because your brain is not firing down the same neural pathway, but
Mhm.
you start to create a different one. And the brain is like, oh my God, this outcome is so much more pleasant than the other one. So
Yeah.
it's going to prefer that path in the future as well,
Mhm.
right? And the more you do that, the more consciously you create other
Yeah.
situations as well. And then maybe, like, I don't know, in 2 years, you're actually going to appreciate Auntie coming over and she's
Mhm.
going to wear her new necklace again. She's going to be like, oh my God, maybe,
Yeah.
maybe she notices now. Yeah.
Ah, when did you start your journey of meditation? How did you get into this space?
I think it was like 5 years ago when I was
Ah.
doing my masters because
Ah.
I was doing crazy hours. Like I was working as a
Mm.
research assistant. I was doing my masters by research, or the research was new. I was in a new country, and I was really just trying to find a tool that can give me enough energy in order to
Mm.
keep up with my days because
Mm.
I could feel how I was just squeezing out every
Mm.
single like last bit of juice that I had,
Mm.
and I was kind of depleting myself more and more.
Mm.
And then I started to like see people talking about, oh, there's meditation, it's this, like not really in a spiritual context, but more in a like, this can actually give you energy. Like it can be so much more effective than having your fifth cup of coffee or having your third nap of the day just to make it to the end and like finish your assignments and go to that conference whatsoever. So I was just starting to sit down. It's like, okay, let's try this thing, and then close your eyes
Mm-hmm.
and it's like maybe use a little meditation, do a breath work exercise, and
Mm-hmm.
it's helped a lot in terms of like mental clarity, but it
Mm-hmm.
was also wild to see how much inner dialogue was happening.
Yeah.
Like that was the, I was not expecting anything from it other than getting more energy for my day.
Mm-hmm.
But I started to see this massive like flood of thoughts. And it was like, oh my God, is it the right path? Oh my God,
Mm-hmm.
can you do that? Are you sure you can? Oh my God, I'm
Mm-hmm.
tired. And then here's this, and there's that, and there's that, and there's that. And I've never really seen an opportunity to say stop. But
Mm-hmm.
then when I was actually quieting myself down and everything around, I was like, I've suddenly seen everything. I was like, oh my God. It's like in the Matrix movie, you know, when you see
Yeah.
all the numbers and like letters
Mm-hmm.
and everything in front of your screen, you're like, stop.
Yeah.
And then the more you do that, the more quiet it gets. And you're like,
Mm-hmm.
wow, like peace is a choice.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't need the like swanky house and like
Yeah.
job or anything. It's just like I can sit down wherever I am and I can like bring it all to a halt. And that was such
Yeah.
a powerful
So
experience.
you just consciously reminded yourself that you have to move away from all of these chaotic voices in your head and you have to calm down and have no thoughts at all. Or how
It
did
was
you?
kind of, it was a byproduct really. Like
Uh-huh.
it was the intention was not to slow down my thoughts, because before I've started to meditate, I didn't even know that I had that amount of thoughts,
Yeah.
which is also why the limiting beliefs are interesting, because I wasn't even aware of the limiting beliefs and like limiting self-talk that I had with myself
Mm-hmm.
before I've done that. So the meditation, like the intention for the meditation really was just getting more energy in order to perform better.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, or I don't know,
Yeah.
you go to the gym because you want
Yeah.
to be jacked and you want to have
Yeah.
energy, right? It's
Yeah.
not the like any other aspect, but like you
Yeah.
want to perform. Everything
Yeah.
in our world here is around how do I perform at peak?
Mm-hmm.
And then the byproduct of that wanting to perform better was that I then understood. It's like, oh my God, there's so much shit I'm telling myself.
Yeah.
And then you start to ask the questions like that you were mentioning in the beginning. It's like, why?
Yeah.
Why? Like, why the fuck? Who put them there? And then you're like, this was me. Like,
Yeah.
why? What
Yeah.
the fuck
I
is that?
should be my biggest cheerleader and see what am I
Exactly.
doing to
Yes.
myself.
I should be like, bro, you're fucking amazing. If that job pisses you off, maybe it's not yours. Maybe there are
Yeah.
other jobs as well, right?
Yeah.
But then you got the box. You're like, oh my God, no, I'm an engineer.
No. Yeah.
I had my 4 years of studies and 2 years of
Mm.
experience in a job. I have to continue.
Mm.
And you're like, why? It
Yeah.
doesn't matter now, right? I could have studied medicine for 50 years now.
Mm.
If I want to be a musician tomorrow, I couldn't also decide to not give a flying fuck about medicine, right? I could just
Yeah.
do it.
Yeah. And how did you find the courage to make a shift through meditation, or how you have been on a journey of transformation, right? You have been making active choices, active decisions to put your life on a different track. What made you do that?
There were different stages on that journey with
Yeah.
like different goals and different visions.
Yeah.
Um, I think in the beginning, it was really looking at where am I living physically right
Mm-hmm.
now? Who's in my environment in terms of people? And simple things like very materialistic things in the beginning as well. It's like, what cars am I driving?
Mm.
What am I doing? And what is possible? Like, what are other people doing? I mean,
Mm.
Instagram,
Mm.
it's like, look at it, like, fuck, those houses are looking so good.
Mm.
And I can live that too. It's like,
Mm.
this is my human experience, right? This is my life right now.
Yeah.
So why should it be like, maybe the AMG over there, like the nice car, is not for me? Why the fuck? It's like
Yeah.
human beings have built that. I enjoy that. So why should I not have it too?
Yeah.
So the first stage really was like okay, so let's get specific. Let's be like, okay, that's the type
Hmm.
of house I like, and that's
Hmm.
the type of car that I like, and those are the kind of things I want to be talking about with my circle of friends. And then
Hmm.
how do I get there? Like, am I on the track to do that? And what's like, actually not. Like,
Hmm.
maybe I want to make some more money, but maybe I also need a different mindset in order to be able
Hmm.
to shift like that. And then going through different stages, and then also hitting some dead ends with the materialistic approach, and then
Hmm.
really now it's like, or for the last couple of months, shifting more to a place of measuring it by like the level of inner peace that I'm
Yeah.
feeling. It's like doing something and then comparing it to the level of peace that I know I can achieve, and then be like, am I there? No. Can we maybe slow down a little bit
Hmm.
more, and then taking it step by step.
It's interesting that you said that you reached a dead end for the materialistic things that you were aiming for. But I think that there's no dead end if you think about it. How did you realize that you are hitting the wall now and you want to go beyond all the materialistic visions that you had for yourself?
Mm,
Because if you go out in the world, there's always a bigger house, there's always a better car, there's always an upgrade coming.
exactly.
And then how do you know that, okay, this is the point that I think it doesn't work for me anymore and I want to seek something bigger, something better?
Yes, that's
It's,
it's the never-ending trap, right?
yeah,
It's the like, you put something on your vision board, and
yeah,
it says, I don't know, I want to drive my dream car, and then you're sitting in your dream car, and then it's this very temporary experience,
hmm,
and then you're sitting there, and you're like, fuck, that's amazing. So what's happening now? So you're
hmm.
always attaching. I think in the end, what we're all seeking, like looking for, really is fulfillment, love. Just like we feel good waking up.
Contentment. Yeah,
Exactly, exactly. Just the kind of the good feeling, kind of the
yeah,
goods. Read the like. It doesn't have to be too excited, but the like continuous good feeling about
hmm,
what you do, where you are, how you're
hmm,
feeling inside. The main issue with materialism is that you need something in between in order to get you there.
hmm,
So it's like you put the nice picture up on your vision boards, and you're like, oh fuck,
hmm,
when I get this, then I am. When I do this, then I am.
hmm,
So you always attach condition to the I am,
yeah,
where there are also ways to get to the I am immediately. But
hmm,
like I read about that.
hmm,
There are many gurus be like,
hmm.
just be one. But in the beginning, you're like, yeah, fuck off, man. Like I'm gonna be one after I've driven
Yeah,
that fucking thing there.
yeah,
So I was like, I don't know. It was I couldn't really grasp that concept.
hmm,
I could understand it logically,
yeah.
but I couldn't feel it.
But it's okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and then yeah, you do that, you continue on that path, and you're like, oh fuck. If there is always something that I have to attach it to, that also means I always have to put pressure on myself. Like
Hmm,
I need to earn more, and then I need to do more to
hmm,
have more. Where it led to the point where I was just exhausted. Like I just
hmm,
said, no, this doesn't work anymore. Like, no, stop that.
hmm,
There has to be a different route, because if I always have to perform better, again coming back to the I meditate because I want to
hmm.
perform better, then you're also reaching a limit of like, I don't even want to perform better. Like I'm already operating at such a high level,
Yeah.
like that there is no space for peace anymore. It's like,
Hmm,
okay, no, screw that, like, out the window.
hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I was thinking that initially, would you say that you belong to Camp 2? You know, you have a vision of yourself and you would do everything to get to that vision. And you are, I believe, also making vision boards for,
A lot of them.
yeah.
Yes,
So, do you think that something has changed along the way? Do you still make vision boards?
I do,
Yeah,
but in a
but
different way, in a completely different way.
and
They're actually
you
not so different, but I'm attaching less meaning to them. I'm
ah
not just making it a fun exercise
yeah
to like do visualizations. I'm like, I know. As now, it turned more into like a topic of trust and faith. It's actually a question I wanted to ask you later as well. Do you believe in God? But like, it's more a it's more a trust
mm,
thing now. I'm more into like the surrendering to the flow of
yeah
life. Just be like, I was starting this experiment 3 months ago, I think, or 4 months ago, of like what happens if I completely let go of all the force and all the
Mm-hmm.
control that I was trying to impose on reality. I was always trying to control. I'm like, fuck, it's like this needs to go this way because then if I
Mm.
do step one, two, three, four, five, then I will be at step six, which
All
is
the
over there,
calculated
and I've
moves.
defined that. And
Yeah.
I really wanted to make sure that this how is working, like having plans and having like plans
Yeah.
of how to get to the vision boards, how to do this.
Yeah.
And this led to just this massive level of
Yeah.
exhaustion I was describing. So
Yeah.
then I was like starting this experiment. Okay, if I'm just not doing anything, like not doing anything, but I'm just surrendering, like life, show me. Like I was giving life a direction. I was like,
Yeah.
this sounds good, no? I was like, universe, like, come on, yeah. It
Really?
won't work, right? It won't work. I was like, and I was trusting. I was putting a lot of trust in that, and I was just
Huh.
like, and then I was letting go. I was just seeing what's coming my way, and then what you think initially is nothing's gonna happen. Oh my god, if I don't make plans, if I don't go out, and I'm like, now I'll do this, and then I'll do that, and then I'll do that, I'm just gonna be a fucking potato on the couch, right? And nothing's gonna happening.
Yeah.
But it's actually the opposite happened. There
Really?
was always something, like always something coming up, with the main difference that now I didn't have to force it anymore. It was like everything I'm doing right now, like
Yeah.
with the certification, with
Mm.
like the content creation, whatever. I was not initiating a single thing. I was placing the intention, like, yes,
Mm.
I want to create content because I've never done this. It was like this passion that was sitting with me for like 6 years now. I was like, I want to do that, and I want to travel the world, and I want to have
Mm.
conversations with amazing people. I got that.
Mm.
It's just coming my way.
Hmm.
It's absolutely amazing.
Going a bit back, what were you doing 3 months ago, 4 months ago, when you thought that, okay, I'm gonna let the reality, I'm just gonna let it go, you know? I'm gonna let things come to me. What were you doing at that point? Were you already, uh, were you working in a farm? Were you having your own thing going on and you thought you would just leave that aside and do something new, do something better? Where were you at?
I was running my own company,
Okay.
and I was more or less desperately trying to make it work. Maybe that was it. It didn't feel that desperate. Now when I'm looking back, I'm like, yeah, it actually was. I was just trying to like get clients, always looking for new
Hmm.
opportunities, always texting everyone I can, like everyone I could, and really just pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing, and nothing seemed to be working. And
Hmm.
if you just do that, like you do it over and over and over and over again,
Hmm.
and then you're also overloading. Like I'm an expert at that, just overloading yourself with like, oh, here is this new technique in order to get there, and then there is this
Yeah.
new technique, and then
Yeah.
you check YouTube, Instagram, books,
Yeah.
whatever it is. I was just reaching a point where my internal hard drive and like
Hmm.
my little computer up there, I was like, man, fuck that now.
Yeah.
I just could not do it anymore. I
Huh.
just could not get up anymore. I couldn't do it anymore. I could not be bothered anymore. And I was
Huh.
already at the point like early in the year where I was actually running like freelance marketing business. I had another business for myself going on. I had my 9 to 5 jobs, like really
Hmm.
getting to the point of like, man, this is just insane. Like reaching the point of absolute insanity.
Hmm.
No, this can't be the way. Like I was writing it down, that kind of the vision for life. Like I want to live a life of like love, peace, and fulfillment. Those are like the three. And I was like, peace, no. Fulfilled, no. Love, yes. But like kind of pointless without the other two because you can't
Hmm.
enjoy it. You don't have the time.
Yeah.
And then I read this book called like the Surrender Experiment by
Hmm.
Michael Singer.
Hmm.
And he was explaining this whole thing of like just giving into the flow of life. I was like, I'm at this point now where I can just try it. It doesn't matter. Right? My
Hmm.
company, like I'm banging my head against the wall over and over
Hmm.
again, like the little ape in Homer Simpson's head.
Yeah.
It's like I
Yeah.
was doing the same motion over and over again. I say, okay, maybe now is the time.
Yeah.
And then I was trying it out, and yeah, it's going well. I'm not making millions. Like I'm still waking up from time to time, be like, how the fuck am I gonna do it financially? But I
Yeah.
had that problem before as well.
Hmm. But I think it's very brave of you to let go of something which you created by yourself.
Thank
Was
you.
it
Yeah.
really hard to let go of it? in the moment you decided that, okay, it's not working, I need to move on, it must have been very difficult. Because I think when you start something, you attach a lot of emotional value to it. It's an extension of yourself, right? And you want to bring it up a notch. You want to do it better than you have done anything else in your life. You put a lot of effort, energy, time into it. And then to see it all not working at some point and realizing it that it's probably not going to work ever in this direction that you want to take it to. How was it?
It was a process.
Yeah.
Like it was not that I was admitting it from like day one.
Yeah.
It took some time to like fully admit that,
Yeah.
okay, shit, maybe I was in that mode of desperation and just trying over and over the same way. It's like Albert Einstein's famous definition of insanity is like doing the same thing over and over again, wishing for a
Yeah.
different outcome. Um, so it definitely took a little bit of time in order to fully admit that to myself. I think that there are two like hard inner dialogues that you really have to face and sit through. The first one is you were going against your own expectations, so you were not meeting them. It's like, yeah, okay, done that in the past. Like I can kind of clear that with myself. But then also the fuck, and now I need to go out and tell everyone else that this is also not working. It's like, oh shit, this like whole thing of like failure
Failure.
and
Yeah.
people looking at you and be like, oh man, yeah, why? Like just
Yeah.
keep on pushing. And so those were definitely the harshest truths to face as well. But then also to realize that, yeah, maybe other people are gonna be like, what the fuck is he doing? But again, in the end, I need to wake up in the morning. I need to get up, and I didn't enjoy getting up in my own life anymore. So I was like, okay, doesn't matter. Like if I do it for the other person, it's not genuinely and authentically me anyways.
Yeah.
So I could just, yeah, decide to not give a shit. But it took a lot of time to not give a shit
Yeah.
anymore.
But at any point of time, did you feel like you are not good at what you are doing, or you did not make yourself proud, or you're disappointing yourself? Did you think less of yourself at any point?
Oh yeah, all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
And then how did you come out of it?
It's the it's really starting to learn to love yourself.
Yeah.
I was hearing this sentence of like, I think I actually had that conversation with mom a couple of times, or I read it in the book. I don't even know anymore. It's the imagine you were talking to yourself like you're talking to your best friends, or vice versa. You talk to your best friend like you talk to yourself. Would you talk to your best friend in the same way you are talking to yourself? So imagine, like in my case now, a good friend of mine is coming over and it's like, yo, bro, like I can't make this company work. I'm fucking exhausted. Like, I'm burnt out. I can't do it anymore. Would you be like, you stupid motherfucker, get up now? Like, look at how many people you're failing at this point in
Yeah.
time, and be
You
like,
made a
and like
commitment.
run? Or would you more be like, bro, come on, let's maybe, I don't know, let's have a beer, let's sit down, it's like give him a hug, right?
Yeah.
Or would you do that? And maybe if you're more on the compassionate side of human beings, you would probably choose the second path. But then I've realized I was treating myself the first path. I was like, okay, this whole thing can't work. Like there's actually zero, like there's no self-love at all. It's more like self-sacrifice. It's more like the biblical like images that you see with the whip where it's just like constantly just like punishing yourself. And it's like, yeah, but why? Like I'm living with myself, right?
Yeah.
So try the self-love thing. And the more you're getting into it, the more you start to realize how much, like, or I start to realize how much I've neglected myself in the past, and that there are actually many hugs that I can give to myself and be like, yo,
Aw.
man, it's like it's actually all right.
Yeah.
And then
You're
it's like,
doing a great job.
yeah, and then most like
Yeah.
2 or 3 months later, it's like all of that shit which was so devastating and detrimental, it's like it's in the past anyways. And then you're sitting there and you're recording a podcast and you're like, wow, this is actually
Worked
cool,
out pretty
right?
well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
And in the time that you were struggling professionally, uh, How were your other relationships evolving around you? Did you have time to cater to them? Because you mentioned that you were all drained out. Did you have energy to cater to the relationships that mattered to you, besides the relationship with yourself?
Yeah. No, not really. I think the relationship to myself was a representation of the relationship to other people in my life as well.
Hmm.
Because it was all squeezed into like, I don't know, a 30-minute call here, or just like
Yeah,
only one dinner but not too long there because I need
yeah.
to like get up early the next morning. It was very
Hmm.
compartmentalized
Hmm.
throughout like the days, the weeks, and definitely the opposite of how I want to live a friendship, right? Like you want to have time for people. Obviously, I
Yeah,
don't have to like when I'm visiting Edie, I don't have to crash on the couch for like 3 days, right? But just have time and be present without
yeah,
having to think about the next item coming up on my agenda. Like when I'm there, I want to be there. And if I'm
yeah,
there for like 5 hours, I'm there for 5 hours. And if it's 3 minutes, it's 3 minutes. It doesn't matter. And
yeah.
I was definitely far away from that point because I was not leaving myself alone.
Hmm.
So in terms of, oh my God, you have to do this and then
Hmm.
do and do and do and always do. So there was always the next thing already in my
Yeah.
mind before.
Oh, I also have to do
Yeah.
this, and this. I see. And then when you decided to let go of all of it, did your relationships change? Did you see them? Did you see yourself coming closer to home? The
Yeah.
home within you, and
Oh yeah.
finding the connections you were craving for, finding the normalcy you were seeking. How did it change? And how does that put you now on the map with yourself and with the people around you?
Hmm. Initially, it was fantastic because it
Yeah,
was the first time in a very, very long time where I just did not really have many set plans or
yeah,
actions on like any to-do list whatsoever. So when I was
yeah.
going somewhere or seeing someone or spending time with myself, I knew that there was no timer running in the
Mm,
background. So it's good because I could just fully give in. I was like, okay,
mm,
let's see. I don't have like big plans anyways. So I could just go, like, could just see where this is going. And then you go to one, like, you see your friends in one place, and then someone's like, oh, do you want to go to the spa in 2 days? I'm like, fuck yeah, I want to go to the spa. Like,
yeah,
I don't have plans. So I could just say yes
yeah,
to those things I really wanted to say yes
yeah,
to, which is really cool. Now it's like, yeah, time-wise, it's a little bit, like, I have less time than I had like those like two
yeah,
months ago. But I'm still not trying to plan too much. Like
yeah,
it's more as you were describing in the very beginning too of the like I'm just trying to do the things that I have at hand now as
yeah,
best as possible.
yeah.
So when I'm going somewhere, I'm trying to be as present as possible and just be
Mm,
the best possible version of myself. And then I'm just
mm,
like trusting if I am showing up as the best version and I'm feeling fucking good, then fucking
mm,
good things are gonna happen, right? It's like
mm,
that's a law.
mm.
Like that's the universal law. It's like
Yeah,
that's karma, right?
yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of how I want to be
Ah,
moving it
so have
forward
you
as well.
shifted to Camp 1, going
I
that
have
experience? Yeah.
shifted to Camp One,
Ah,
yes.
welcome.
Thank you so much. You could have invited me before. I was like,
I
I am.
just didn't know you before.
I know maybe I wasn't ready before. So yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, I know.
yeah.
So have you always been Camp One? Has it always been kind of like that,
Hmm.
or have you
Ah,
have you done things differently before?
have I? Well, I think, well, as I said, I wanted to be a researcher for some reason. I always put a researcher on an altar, because I thought that they are doing the hard things.
Mm,
And I felt that if I want to really understand a topic, I should really get down into research, get my hands dirty, and really go into the depths of it. Not just, okay, there's this new model, use the API, do your business, that's it. Wanted to learn the inner workings of it, wanted to create a model by myself. And yeah, then I thought, okay, what can I do to get into research at that time? So I'm talking about me six 6 years ago, maybe 7 years ago when I was still in my bachelor's.
Mm.
And at that point, I knew that I wanted to make a shift in my studies. I was pursuing electronics and communications engineering. I wanted to shift to computer science, and I was deliberate on that. So I think the choice might have been made very spontaneously, but right after that, I knew that I want to do something big in computer science.
Mm-hmm.
So there was this vision in my head of me getting down and dirty into the research world somehow, not knowing how, but I was doing the work of learning the fundamentals of the subject and trying to apply everywhere that I could. So yeah, but I would also say that luck comes to you when you work hard and
Mm-hmm.
when you work with all your honesty. And I think that's what happened. I think I also believe in, like, you can't just put your ship on a sea and uh, expect it to reach to Colombia. You have to do something
Mm-hmm.
to make it reach to Colombia. Otherwise, you might reach Argentina, where you don't want to, perhaps.
Christopher Columbus thought he reached India, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. But he was still directing his
he
ship
was, he was,
somewhere.
yeah.
Yeah, he was not in some deserted island where there was nothing and no one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I don't mind getting to the US thinking that I have reached India,
Mm-hmm.
but the thing is, I want to reach somewhere. I don't want to be in a stranded island and feeling, did I waste all of my time? Yeah, that's
Yeah.
not a good feeling. Yeah, yeah,
Do you feel like you
that's
have wasted your time before?
yeah. Well, now I think that, huh? I think I would give this answer in different ways depending on the phase I'm in.
Okay.
Yeah. Uh, Now I think that maybe it's good that I did dramatics.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe 3 years ago, 4 years ago, I thought to myself it would have been good had I just switched my subject pretty early on in my bachelor's. Then I wouldn't have wasted the 3 years in my bachelor's just to realize I want to make a switch and
Mm.
then struggling by myself. But I think that journey got me to where I am. So, yeah, I think in the end, I'm not complaining.
Yeah.
It's all good. I'm at peace with everything the way it played out. Yeah.
That's a very, very good point to be at, isn't it? Right? It's like
Yeah.
using a little bit of the wisdom of hindsight, and then also being very mindful of how you're telling yourself the story of your past. Like if
Yeah.
you're like, oh my God, I've wasted this and this was so shit, but actually appreciating that maybe it was necessary to do it that way to end
Yeah.
up exactly where you are right now,
Yeah.
which is so good, especially if you're happy about the direction that you're heading in, and you're like,
Yeah.
it's actually cool to see it, to now be able to call this a, I don't know, lucky coincidence or chance
Yeah.
or however you want to call it
Yeah.
back then.
Yeah.
That's nice. Do you believe in God or like the universe or like a higher power or
Yes. Yes, I am spiritual for sure. I Well, growing up, I think in all Indian families, there's a notion of God, many,
mm,
many gods and goddesses. And because my parents are religious, I think growing up, I was also religious. And like my mom used to narrate us, me and my brother, bedtime stories about gods and goddesses. And I always enjoyed it. It's a
mm,
fantasy world. And growing up, it started making more chaos in my head because I started mixing it with science and it didn't make sense. Then I started
yes.
questioning more, and as a teenager, even more. And then I came to Germany, and then I had a lot of conflicts in my head as to what is what. And then I believed that, okay, people perhaps believe in God because they were they are going through certain hardships in their lives, and
Mm,
they want a ray of hope, basically. They want someone to reassure them that everything's gonna be all right in the end. There's hope, there's positivity, you are in good hands. Just tread the path you are on, and everything would be fine. They just want to believe in a better future, in a better tomorrow, and that's why they believe in God. So I think then I also started realizing, also seeing some other religions, that maybe it's not about how religious you are, it's not about which God you follow, it's about the values you carry from your religion, the values you possess. And I think I have a lot of values from Hinduism. For a while in my life, I also practice Buddhism, but now I just follow spirituality. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think there's no religion better than serving humanity. And yeah, now I believe that the universe lies within us, the world starts from us. And you have to, once you are aligned in your body, mind, and soul, everything starts making sense, the worlds get better, and yeah, nothing can pierce through your wall of security and sanity after that. Yeah. So I believe in higher power, and could be God, could be anything. Uh, but yeah, there's someone certainly working magic around and
Yes.
making coincidences happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
That's a very long answer.
It is. It is. But we could dive so much deeper into that because I
Yeah.
love it, especially I like the I like all of the bits of that answer. Like the magic is so true. It's like
Yeah.
I've been like this like atheist,
Yeah.
scientist, researcher, engineer for
Yeah.
so long. It's also just getting fucking boring. It's like really believing in magic,
Mm.
and the more you believe in magic, the more you see magic. It's like
Mm.
this. I mean, this is how reality is working as well.
Yeah.
Is so true, and also understanding that you are not alone there. Like things
Mm.
are working out great
Mm.
eventually because something is taking care of you, and this is actually
Yeah.
you. But like
Yeah.
you can also call it God, or you can call it universe, or
Yeah.
however you want,
Mm.
and it will help me a lot, especially my like logical left brain, is that quantum physics
Mm.
now is actually kind of giving the proof almost that God exists, or like
Yeah.
some unexplainable matter that's pulling everything or like keeping everything together, right? Which is insane. It's like the your observation is like manipulating the experiment, so your expectations of how you want something to happen is influencing how it's happening. And also
Yeah.
there's like the our morphogenic fields, everything
Yeah.
between particles, which is miraculously communicating between two particles. It's like there is now so much scientific evidence for this whole like
Yeah.
God universe thing. It's like, okay, it gives me a lot of hope. It
Mm.
gives me a lot of strength.
Mm.
It makes my days more magical. And
Yeah.
now science is proving it. So I'm like, fuck, I'm all in.
Yeah.
And as soon as I made that shift, it's like life's getting so much easier
Yeah.
because you start to realize like maybe I don't have to worry about all the hows. And as you
Yeah.
say, maybe it just takes a little bit of like dedicated work and some of my passion and be like, okay, I'm just going to do this to the best of my
Yeah.
abilities. And then it's going to work out. And the more you do that, the more you see that it's actually working out. You're like, oh, holy shit.
Yeah.
It's like, this is like, it's wild how sometimes there are these small examples where I'm like, I'm
Yeah.
just saying thank you out to the universe of like,
Yeah.
you you know there is something popping up that you really want to be doing, or you're
Yeah.
like, oh fuck, this would be so cool, but it's like clashing with something. And then you're
Mm.
like, why is it not happening? And
Mm.
5 minutes later, you
Mm.
get a ring from the person who you're having the clashing meeting with. They're like, oh man, sorry, I can't do it. Can you move it to next week? And you're like,
Yeah.
sure we can. I was like,
Yeah.
and you're getting to the point where like
Yeah.
almost expecting it to happen, right?
Yeah.
Something is popping up, and you're like, wow, fuck, this is like even better than I could have imagined. But
Yeah.
it's like it's not really working out, or I'm missing a little bit of money. And then like I don't know, you find something, or you're like, oh, a new client. Wow, it's like it came out of nowhere, and it's like it's just there. The more you look at these things, and the more you say thank you to these things, the more they happen, and the more you're
Huh.
like, so good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, when I'm really whiny, about little things, perhaps not little things, mostly about my job or how I don't have time to do the
The
things I want
usual.
to, the usual.
Yeah.
I get very whiny at times, a lot of times. And when I whine about things to my mom, she always reminds me to be grateful.
Hmm.
Initially, I get really, what, again?
Yeah, yeah.
but
Thank you for this message for me.
but I think that certainly helps. Yeah.
Hmm.
It just change once you start being grateful for what you have, that changes the narrative that you give to yourself in your head about how pissed you are about the things that are happening, perhaps at work. But then you don't, at that point, you forget about how hard you worked, or the place you are working at right now has been your dream. And now you're working in your dream, you're living in your dream, and it's still not enough. What would be
Hmm.
enough? So, yeah, it's always good to appreciate the moment, to also appreciate all the things that you are doing in the moment, and yeah, take it from there. So it's also like a deep breath and a moment to calm down, make space, be
Hmm.
grateful, pick up yourself, and then go ahead again with a bit of positive positivity about it. Yeah,
Definitely.
yeah.
I think that was a beautiful closing statement for the conversation because I'm very grateful for the chat that we had. I think it was a fantastic start for the richer every day, or the
Or the
future is
future is
richer,
now.
or now is the future podcast, however
Yeah.
it's gonna be called. Yeah. Is there
Yeah.
anything, any last thing you want to share, or any last question you wanna ask? Or
Well,
let's say, what would you give to someone who's like, okay, I understand 50% of the stuff that they were talking about. It's like, do you have a message where that you're really like, shit, I think people should be thinking about that.
thinking about a message?
Yeah, or just a message you want to give to people to like, I don't know, take it with you.
Ah, I think something that I constantly remind myself is it's not me, it's them. To give more context behind it. So sometimes you think that what you did is not enough for someone. Perhaps you are doing your 9 to 5 job, you are working for a client, or you're making some efforts into doing some things, and then you think that it's not being perceived the way you thought it would be, and you have maxed out yourself, but you still think that, okay, it's not enough for them. You're getting that feeling, you're getting that vibe, and perhaps they are not being as responsive as you thought they would be after seeing the work that you did.
Hmm.
Then I think it's a good time to remind yourself that it's not me, it's them.
Hmm.
So perhaps they didn't even get a chance to have a look at what you did. Perhaps they didn't have a chance to process it. Perhaps they didn't have the capacity at the moment to appreciate it. Give them time, let them come to terms with what you have presented, and yeah, just make space, give them time, and be kind to yourself. So
Hmm.
don't doubt or don't give yourself a hard time because you think that you haven't done enough. So
Hmm.
give yourself grace and put all the anxiety out in the universe onto someone else. So
Yeah,
it's never me, it's them.
that's
Yeah.
powerful.
Yeah.
I really like that. It's like, it reminds me. Do you know the book The Four Agreements by any
No.
chance? Have you heard about that? It's like it's just like it's this Toltec book, and the Toltec are this like mysterious colony of Atlantis. It's like
Uh,
300,000 years ago, and they were writing down these like four agreements. And the first, like, be impeccable with your words. Like, always watch out what you put out into the universe because it's happening, right?
yeah.
And the second one is don't ever take anything personally.
Yeah.
And it's this kind of thing. It's like you never know what headspace someone's in when they
Yeah.
reply to you,
Yeah.
or when you're delivering something. You never
Yeah.
know, as you say, what have they actually looked at, or
Yeah.
are you maybe the 25th person they're talking to right now,
Yeah.
or did they maybe have like a shit day before, right? It's like
Yeah.
whatever it is, it's not about you. Like let them
Yeah.
go home with it as well,
Yeah.
right? Be like, okay,
Yeah.
it's gonna be better.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
like
I
that.
think when you start being kind to yourself, you
Yeah.
also start being kind to others.
Yeah, and they
So
will
it's
sense it
just,
too, so you will get even more kindness back, which is, yeah,
yeah, win-win.
exactly. And here we go, magical,
Yes.
amazing.
Any final thoughts from you?
I think the last thing really is like it's okay to slow down.
Yeah.
Really, just do it. It's magical. It's like I was just started to pick up like Tai Chi now, which was very interesting how I got into that. But that's a story for another conversation. Really, but like my like Tai Chi master, like Jürgen's fantastic guy. He's always talking about there can be no action without stillness or like quietness before. Like every action is born out of like nothing. Need to slow down in order to then let the new action come. See clearly what is my next action. And I was like, no, that has to be like action follows action. It's like money loves speed, all that stuff. It's like, yeah, but your body and mind, they love peace as well. And there is so much power in these moments. And as soon as you're hitting the point where you're like really resting, the next thing is coming immediately. Because you know when you're ready, the universe knows when you're ready.
Yeah.
And when nothing's happening,
Yeah.
maybe you're not. Maybe you just need a little bit more rest and just give yourself a little bit more time to then go on. And there's always something coming. I've tried it a
Yeah.
lot of times now. And it always
Yeah.
goes on.
Yeah.
That's okay. That experience is great. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. My mom always also says that the arrow always goes backwards before hitting the target. So don't feel that you have lost it when you're going a bit, taking a few steps back, or when you think that life is making you take a few steps back, because it's probably for the best. You're just gaining the momentum as you go back, and then you hit the target.
That's the point where you need most trust.
Yes.
You're going back
Yes.
and be like, okay,
Yes.
practice.
Trust the process.
Exactly. Cool, Richa. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Yanni.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Richa
Woohoo!
every day.
The
Nice.
future is now. So this was a very raw, honest, and heartfelt conversation with Yannick. The one thing that stayed with me was the transformative power of meditation in Yannick's life. If you also found some value in this podcast, do let me know by leaving a review. Follow me or follow Beyond Boundaries on different socials that are listed below in description. I'll see you next time with another episode of Beyond Boundaries.